So happy 20th CRFM. It's so good to see everyone here. I'm Maria Pena from the Centre for Resource Management and Environmental Studies at the University of the West Indies in Barbados. And my colleague Patrick McConney and I, we work a lot on gender and fisheries since 2016. So this presentation really shares some perspectives on gender and social, climate and blue justice based on our direct observations, research and experience working with fisherfolk in the CRFM region on gender and fisheries. Our views are based primarily on exploratory work on fisherfolk organization leadership, collective action, livelihoods analysis, and popular theatre with Caribbean fisherfolk. So rights-based ethics on these social justice, climate justice, and blue justice are rights-based ethics and key advocacy issues. They're now emerging in discussions with fisherfolk. They're closely intertwined in SIDS societies, villages, and households engaged in small-scale fisheries. And fisherfolk perceiving themselves as marginalized are really concerned about their invisibility in the blue economy, climate change, and national social protection initiatives and strategies. So here's a little quiz for you. I should be quizzing everyone. What are these justices about? So we've all heard about social justice, comprehensive, universal and normative concept for an inclusive, equitable and integrative society. This has a long history with relics like philosophers like Plato and Thomas Aquinas. It's also throughout religious texts as well. But two terms that are gaining traction are climate justice and blue justice. So for climate justice, it's a concept that addresses the just division, fair sharing and equitable distribution of the burdens of climate change and its mitigation and responsibilities. And blue justice is actually quite newer. It was developed by the Too Big to Ignore initiative, and it really is a critical approach examining how coastal communities and small-scale fisheries are affected by blue economy and blue growth initiatives undertaken by institutions and governments to promote sustainable ocean development. So Caribbean fisherfolk are facing three accelerating aspects of global change in the ocean. We've got the cumulative climate change effects that affect women and men in fisheries quite differently based on gender divisions of labor and access to resources and various assets. We've also got blue economy development, which includes marine spatial planning. And while the essence of the blue economy is positive overall, it does have the potential for uneven distribution of benefits and numerous social injustices for small-scale fisherfolk. Checks and balances need to be applied, but it seems as though governance arrangements and mechanisms to ensure justice are not set out in these plans, or at least they're not explicitly set out. Add to this social justice inequalities, for example, low or no social protection, fishing industry challenges, fisherfolk vulnerabilities, will increase and injustices will be perpetuated. So climate, blue and social justice must be advocated for and pursued by fisherfolk and their households. What we did is we looked at, we compiled a number of findings and lessons learned from participatory action research that we conducted, the Gender and Fisheries team conducted. And it's mainly qualitative data collected by secondary data analysis, surveys, informal interviews, group interviews, focus groups, and direct observations. Main research areas were fisherfolk leadership, climate change impacts, collective action, livelihoods, and empowerment and agency in small-scale fisheries. The level of investigation varies between local and regional. The focus for our research is really on women in small-scale fisheries in the CRFM region. And given the breadth of the accumulated learning across the cases, we discussed the findings according to two aspects for gender analysis: gender roles, responsibilities, and time use, and patterns of power and decision-making. I should put a disclaimer here that I'm only going to give you snippets here. You need to read our paper for more details. And both of these are linked to gender and climate justice, blue justice, and social justice. With respect to the attention to social justice, we look at it more from the simplest perspective of equality and accessing opportunities, wealth, and social benefits. Case findings don't claim to be representative, but they do aid our understanding, and the lessons from the cases on how women in Caribbean small-scale fisheries navigate the climate crisis, the growing blue economy, and their inclusion in society are integral to informing gender mainstreaming in these socio-ecological systems. So here we have a bit. Women's roles, as we know, are diverse in Caribbean small-scale fisheries as value chain actors and as leaders. They're prominent in post-harvest seafood processing, distribution, marketing, and food service. But their contribution to these value-added economic activities are overlooked in official fisheries statistics. And we know that. We go to the CRFM statistics, which is really the authority for fisheries statistics in the region, and we don't have that gender disaggregated data. As leaders, women are underrepresented on fisherfolk associations and cooperative boards. Representation tends to be a fifth that of men. So when looking at CNFO's database of records for their membership organizations, we found 261 male board members versus 51 male board members. And this is across 14 countries for which the sex and 50 fisherfolk organizations across which there was sex disaggregated data. So there is a striking absence of women as heads of organizations, either as a chair or president, compared with men. We've had 4 women to 46 men across FFOs and 14 countries for the 2020 CNFO records. And some of those include, so we've got a woman in Barbados, Barnufo, St. Lucia, another in St. Vincent, and there's one more that I can't remember right now. But some women from the fishing industry in the region have held or are holding influential leadership positions regionally. Example in the CNFO as chairperson, and internationally, for example, the World Forum of Fisher Peoples. And these 2 ladies are leading ladies in our fisheries. We have Nadine Nemhart on the left and Vernell Nichols on the right. Given these roles and their occupations in the fisheries value chain, women are dealing head-on with the impacts of direct and indirect climate change effects, which are making their already unreliable incomes even more precarious. As self-employed entrepreneurs, they diversify their livelihoods both within and outside of the fishing industry. Outside, they work in various sectors such as tourism, security services, for example. And livelihood diversification is really key to women's adaptive capacity. They're grappling with the inadequacy of national social protection services or schemes to meet their economic needs and those of their dependents. But women are not keeping silent or allowing the impacts of the triple exposure scenario, so climate change, blue economy, marine spatial planning, and social issues. They're not allowing them to just consume them. The justice terms may not be entranced yet in the vocabulary of women in fisheries, but there is a gradual awareness among them of the need for attention and resolution of these issues. They are motivated to pursue justice and make themselves visible. Forums such as the Belize Women in Fisheries Forum, which Sandra Grant, who's here, and Ralna Lewis have led, this is now in its 6th year, is one such avenue for women in fisheries to share their gender-specific experiences and find solutions to their problems. They're being more attentive to regional and international fisheries issues. There is keen interest to participate in learning exchanges, capacity building events, and regional and international meetings and conferences about fisheries. Women are positioning themselves to promote climate justice, blue justice, and social justice in Caribbean fisheries. They're seeking assistance from regional and international partners and supporters such as CERMES, CANARI, CNFO, FAO, NGOs, and various networks for assistance. They're building the capacity in approaches such as popular theatre, which is a participatory approach to identify issues and research the issues that they're facing in the industry, raise awareness about them through various methods such as poetry, song, role play to solve their problems and transform the industry. The issues are being highlighted for action. And many identify themselves as leaders or initiators and are eager to take on leadership roles to assist persons in top leadership posts of any gender to improve the governance and overall functioning of fisherfolk organizations for contribution to policy and decision-making in fisheries. So the few bits of preliminary findings here really underscore the value and the importance of understanding and documenting the dynamics of gender in fisheries, particularly with respect to roles and responsibilities of women across small-scale fisheries value chains and their involvement in leadership in Caribbean fisherfolk organizations. Such an understanding is crucial to evidence-based decision-making across varied marine policy realms for just and fair outcomes. More gender disaggregated and social systems data and information are needed to understand and plan for the consequences of climate change, the blue economy, and national social initiatives. These data will make the invisible visible so that their needs will be considered and addressed in challenging situations. Women in fisheries are improving their power and agency to engage and influence decisions related to climate change, the blue economy, and national social initiatives, and we need to support them. And I should make a point here that I'm so glad and kudos to CRFM for the Caribbean Common Fisheries Policy, the CRFM Gender Analysis Strategy and Action Plan, which can all contribute to gender mainstreaming in Caribbean small-scale fisheries. Thanks, everyone.
And thank you, Ms. Pena. I really appreciate it. And yes, make the invisible visible. I really love that.